morning, everybody. We'll call to order our June 18th, 2019 regular meeting of the Mason County Board of Commissioners. Begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. Bernie, if you could please lead us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And item number 3, if the clerk would please take roll.
Commissioner District 1, Randy Netherland.
I'm here.
Commissioner District 2, Kevin Schutte.
Here.
Commissioner District 3, Sharon Trask. I'm here.
Very good, thank you. Moving on to item number 4, correspondence and organizational business. Item 4.1, correspondence, if the clerk would please report the correspondence.
There is no correspondence to report this week.
Okay. Moving on to item 4.2, we have a news release on County Road chip seal and restriping in the months of July and August. Ask staff to come forward and read the press release.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Mason County Public Works would like to notify motorists that our annual restriping and resurfacing, or chip seal, of county roadways will occur during the months of June, July, and August, weather permitting. This year's chip seal program will begin on Monday, June 25th, and finish in August, weather permitting. The 2019 chip seal program will cover approximately 50 miles this year of roads throughout Mason County. Most of our county roads are restriped every year to improve nighttime visibility of pavement markings. Striping may begin as early as Monday, July 8th, and a second round in August will finish the newly chip-sealed roads. This year, Road Products Incorporated out of Spokane, Washington, has been contracted to complete the restriping work. Preparatory work is currently underway and will continue throughout the summer. Brooming of the roadway will occur throughout chip seal and striping operations. Motorists are to expect delays, use caution while driving through the work area, and not to drive across freshly painted lines. The County Sheriff's Department will be providing additional traffic safety during chip seal and striping operations. The county appreciates motorists taking extra care while this work is in progress. For a complete list of roads being chip sealed, please visit the county website at www.co.mason.wa.us under What's New, or call the Public Works Department at 360-427-9670, extension 450. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Item 4.3, we have a news release, Mason County Historic Preservation Commission vacancy. Michael's not here, I can read it. The Mason County Commissioners are seeking an applicant to fill an open position on the Mason County Historic Preservation Commission. The major responsibility of the Historic Preservation Commission is to identify and actively encourage the conservation of Mason County's historic resources by initiating and maintaining a register of historic places and reviewing proposed changes to register properties. They also work to raise community awareness of Mason County's history and historic resources and serve as Mason County's primary resource in matters of history, historic planning, and preservation. Commission members serve 3-year terms and meet monthly during business hours at the county offices in Shelton. The vacant position expires in November 2019. However, due to the shortness of the balance of the current term, the person appointed to this seat will serve until November 2022. Applicants must be residents of Mason County. Interested persons are encouraged to apply for this commission by completing an advisory board form that can be downloaded from our website, www.co.mason.wa.us/forms/advisory/advisoryboardapp.pdf, or by calling the Commissioner's office at 427-9670, extension 419, or 275-4467, extension 419. Completed applications should be submitted in the Commissioner's office at 411 North 5th Street, Shelton by 5 p.m. Friday, June 28, 2019. If there are any questions about this position, please contact Michael McSems at 427-9670, extension 571. Okay, moving on to item number 5. This is our open forum for citizen input. Members of the public would like to address the commission on items not on today's agenda. Ask that you come forward, raise your hand. Chair will recognize you, come forward and state your name. We have a 15-minute total time limit and try to keep it to 3 minutes per person. Anyone for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to adoption of our agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move for adoption of today's agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt today's agenda as presented. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to item number 7, approval of minutes. We have May 28th, 2019 regular meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of May 28th, 2019.
I will second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes from May 28th, 2019. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Moving on to our action agenda. Commissioners will read through the items on today's action agenda, at which time a member of the commission or a member of the public can ask to have a item removed for a separate discussion and vote. Commissioner Netherland, if you would please read items 8.1 through 3. Commissioner Trask, 8.4 and 5, and then I will read the remainder.
Gladly. Mr. Chairman, item number 8.1, approval to sign a letter of no objection for the special occasion liquor license application for the Fjorden Crossing on June 29, 2019 at the Port of Hoodsport. Item number 8.2, approval to allow Chief Administrative Official Frank Pinter to sign the greenhouse gas reduction policy and certify this project will adhere to this policy. Item number 8.3, approval to set a hearing on Tuesday, July 2nd, 2019 at 9:15 a.m. to consider the sale of parcel number 32232-52-08021 located on East Port Townsend Street in Union and parcel number 32021-56-01013 160 East Panorama Drive, Shelton.
Item 8.4, approval of warrants and treasurer electronic remittances. Claims Clearing Fund warrants number 8064767 through 8064931 in the amount of $543,454.49. Direct Deposit Fund warrants number 59475 through 59867 in the amount of $713,082.29. Salary Clearing Fund warrants number 7004467 through 7004505 in the amount of $978,844.69. Item 8.5, approval to authorize ER&R to declare a list of vehicles and miscellaneous parts assets as surplus and allow ER&R to dispose of pursuant to Mason County Code and state laws.
Item 8.6, approval of an overtime contract between the Mason County Sheriff's Office and Mason County Fire District Number 6 for security work at their board meetings. Item 8.7, approval of a resolution to adopt the Mason County Revenue Cash Handling Policy and Procedures. And item 8.8, approval to reschedule the June 25th, 2019 commission meeting time to 9 a.m. rather than 6 p.m. Commissioners, having read through the items on today's action agenda, are there any items you'd like to have removed for a separate discussion?
Yes, Commissioner, I'd like item number 8.6 removed at the request of citizens to have a further discussion.
Okay, very good. Any other items to remove for a separate discussion or vote? Are there any items the public would like to have removed for a separate discussion or vote? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion on the remainder of the action agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the action agenda as listed with the exception of 8.6.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the action agenda as presented with the exception of item 8.6. Any additional discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. And moving on to item 8.6, approval of an overtime contract between the Mason County Sheriff's Office and Mason County Fire District Number 6 for security work at their board meetings. And Chief Trackley, if you wouldn't mind coming forward and doing a quick briefing.
Not sure where you want me to go with this. I was contacted by the chief out there, asked for to run a security work at their monthly meetings due to some problems with some of the folks that show up. He just wanted to make sure that everything was okay and wanted to enter into an overtime contract with us since we were going to not be able to put somebody out there in regular time.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Just one question. Do you, is this standard? Have you received other requests from other organizations in the past to do similar work?
Yes, we have. One of them was up at Belfair a few years ago where we, Belfair Water District, I think. Was it the Water District? Yeah. And we'd done very similar work to that. It was just a contentious set of meetings that they had. And just our presence being there helps calm the scenario and keep people in line.
Okay, very good. Are there any questions from the public for the chief?
I would just like to ask, did you ever receive any documentation with the request so that it looked like the Fire District 6 elected commissioners were making this request?
No, the request was directly from the chief out there, and the contract was signed by the chief.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Chief Drackley?
Is there an indication of what kind of turmoil this is or controversy?
No, there was not.
And can you be specific to Chief Volk that requested?
Volk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Chief. We'll move into public comment. Again, if you'd like to make public comment on this, raise your hand. The chair will recognize you. Come forward, state your name and where you live, and make your comments.
So, my name is Constance Ibsen, and I live at 6500 East State Route 106 in Union. I am a taxpayer in Mason County Fire District 6. So first, I want to thank the commission for following these procedures, because the only reason I knew that my fire department was contracting for extra duty officers was because it was on your agenda, which you put out every Thursday afternoon. So I really appreciate that. I have attended many meetings this year of the fire department, and I specifically attended the April and May meetings. And this request, or any idea about this request, was not on an agenda, and it was not discussed. And I realized that the sheriff department, this is a kind of a routine thing to have extra officers at events, and that you need to account for the revenue when it comes in. But this is kind of no ordinary, it's ongoing through the end of this year. And for some reason, I assumed that the elected officials were making the request. Or just like if I was making it for the Hood Canal Improvement Club, we would probably have the president of the club who is elected to make that request. And this request was made by basically appointed staff that serves at the will of the elected officials. So I really strongly urge you to establish and include, kind of tweak this process that requires documentation that elected officials, elected officers of organizations are authorizing that this contract, that they're entering into this contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Any other public comment on item 8.6? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public comment period and move to commissioner deliberation or motion. Commissioner?
Yeah, little comment on that. We received several emails, and although I appreciate where they're coming from, I want to make clear on your request, it can't really work that way, because more often than not in these organizations, there's a chief or somebody who actually has the authority to spend up to a certain amount of money and enter into that contract. It's not up to us to make those decisions on whether they should or shouldn't, or can or can't. That's up to their commission, not up to us. But I would assume that a chief has the authority to enter into that contract. Some of the things that were sent to us was the idea that it's up to that board to enforce Robert's Rules of Order. That sounds good on the outside, but the truth of the matter is, you can tell them, hey, it's Robert's Rules of Order, you have to follow. They go, yeah, screw you. They can get right in your face and say, wait a minute, you can't hit me, it's against Robert's Rules of Order. So, you know, the law enforcement over the years, especially in North Mason, we've seen quite a few of them. You remember the years of Tahuya. People weren't getting hurt, and they don't get hurt until they do. Until one person loses their faculties and does something stupid and hurts somebody. But when having an officer that's there, standing there, I've never seen one get involved outside of when it was absolutely necessary to escort somebody out. They don't speak, they don't literally get involved at all, and they actually make sure that the citizen is kind of given the same protection as well. So I want to make it clear that this works as a benefit to everybody, and the fact that they're paying to do it, how do you deny them that request? And if you did, and something happens, who's responsible for that? That would be our fault because they did a lawful request, offered to pay for it, and we deny them, and so somebody else got hurt. I don't want to take that responsibility on.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I think what I'd like to say is that I've been to a few events where it could have gotten out of control, but just having the police officers there just kind of sets the mood, sets everybody in the right frame of mind where things calm down. People don't get too excited.
Thank you. I'll just add, this is in my backyard. I'm a resident of.
That was a director that did that, by the way.
Was a director.
Yeah. I'm a resident of Mason County Fire District 6. I live in Union. I've received a number of emails regarding this decision. There's what it is, and then there's what it isn't. And for us, this is a housekeeping vote that we're going to be taking today. But it doesn't address some of the broader issues that are occurring in the fire district that you have elected representation to address. I go to a number of our meetings here at the county where we have a sheriff's office presence. Right now is a good example of that. A lot of times we have sheriff's office personnel in our briefings, regular briefings on Mondays. It's not uncommon to see that at other meetings. We were at a joint meeting with the city council last week, and the police chief was there. I'm sure he had an interest in some of the things that we were discussing, but there was a armed law enforcement presence at that meeting. I have never been to a meeting where the presence of law enforcement has prevented people from speaking to their elected representatives, and the ability to hold elected officials accountable, to make sure that they're operating their government in an open and transparent way, is the responsibility of the electorate, of the citizens. And I don't believe that the sheriff's office presence at your fire district meetings, commission meetings, are going to prevent that. I think they're there to ensure that it's a safe space so that members of the public can continue to hold their elected officials accountable. And it seems like there's quite a bit to go in the fire district to ensure that that those meetings are maintained in an open and transparent way. And so I will be supportive of this contract today, as I have been supportive of all the other sheriff's requests for sheriff's overtime work contracts that have come before me as a commissioner. That is very much so, though, separate from the other issues that need to be resolved in the fire district, and I trust the voters and I trust the people of Mason County Fire District 6 that they'll hold their electeds accountable in order to ensure that they're continuing to uphold their end of the deal as well. So I will be supportive of this today.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval of the overtime contract between the Mason County Sheriff's Office and Mason County Fire District Number 6 for the security work at their board meetings.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the overtime contract with the follow-on approval of a supplemental increase with the specific amounts to be determined later in the year. Any additional discussion?
Just one little comment. I remember in Tahuya when a board went a little bit over the top, I remember the officer actually looking at him saying, no, we don't do that. Literally. So it does work both ways.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Moving on to item number 9, other business. Are there any department heads or electeds that would like to address the commission? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 10. We have crossed over 9:15, so we're able to begin our public hearings. Begin with item 10.1, a public hearing to consider the approval of the following budget supplemental appropriations and amendments to the 2019 budget. Total adjustments to authorize expenditure appropriations in the general fund, $462,959. And total adjustments to authorize expenditure appropriations in funds other than the general fund, $647,974. And I would ask staff to come forward and brief.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Jennifer Byerly with Mason County Support Services, and this is a public hearing to consider the approval of the following budget supplemental appropriations and amendments to the 2019 budget, as you just read. Total adjustments to authorized expenditure appropriations in the general fund, $462,959, and total adjustments to authorized expenditure appropriations in funds other than the general fund, $647,974. Are there any questions on these?
Any questions? Okay. Any questions from the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll move into our public comment period.
Thank you.
Again, if there's a member of the public that would like to make comment on item 10.1, please raise your hand, come forward, and the chair will recognize you. Are there any public comment? Okay, hearing no public comment, we'll close the public comment period and move to commissioner deliberation or motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we do the total adjustments to the authorized expenditures appropriations to the general fund within our budget, $462,959. A total adjustment to the authorized expenditure appropriations and funds other than the general fund, $647,974.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the following budget supplemental appropriations and amendments to the 2019 budget. Total adjustments to the authorized expenditure appropriations in the general fund, $462,959. And total adjustments to authorized expenditure appropriations in funds other than the general fund, $647,974. Any additional discussion?
That was much easier.
Yeah.
Terry.
Just a word of thanks to staff for working on these over the past several weeks. The fact that we're doing a June budget supplement means that 2020 budget is right around the corner, so much more to come on that. Okay, any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, and the motion carries. Moving on to item 10.2, public hearing to consider code amendments to Title 14, Chapter 14.22, Flood Damage Prevention, and Title 8, Chapter 8.52, Section 8.52.130, Frequently Flooded Areas, and ask staff to brief.
Good morning, Kel Rowan with Mason County Planning Department. And these proposed amendments to the county's flood damage prevention ordinance, Chapter 1422 and Chapter 8.52 of the frequently flooded areas of the resource ordinance, follows several years of work by FEMA to update our floodplain maps. They were last updated and adopted in 1988, and then for the Skoke Valley in 98. So they are 30 and 20 years old, and these new mapping is based on new technologies and much better adjusted for actual flooding areas. FEMA did provide the county with preliminary maps in 2016. And in 2017, the county chose to adopt those preliminary maps as regulatory. And so we have, within the planning and building departments, been regulating by both the 88 maps when they're more restrictive, because that's required by federal law for lenders and flood insurance companies to regulate by the official 88 and 98 maps. But the county chose to adopt the preliminary maps as best available information. We did that in 2017, and we've been regulating folks who are in the 2016 preliminary map, in the map floodplain. And it's been a huge learning curve, but my partner in crime, Trish Willett, in the building department, we've been learning a lot, and we've really had now over a year of working with our residents of Mason County who are in floodplains and wanting to redevelop or develop, and working through that process. And we feel like we have become much better, better providers of information and getting them through the process. So Mason County does voluntarily participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. If we chose not to, people would not be able to get a loan on a house in a floodplain because lenders are required by federal law to require flood insurance, and you can't get flood insurance on the general market. You have to get for the most part, unless you want to pay really, really, really expensive insurance. It's typically through the National Flood Insurance Program, and we are then, if we want to participate in that, we have to follow these regulations. So since 2017, we have been working to update our flood damage prevention ordinance in Chapter 8.52, which is the frequently flooded areas, and get it in compliance with the Code of Federal Regulations. I want to thank Susie Sarpong with the FEMA Region 10. She's done a lot of work and help with me to make sure that our ordinance that we're going to adopt today is in compliance, and that we will be in compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program, and no one's going to notice any difference with their insurance or their lender. It goes effective June 20th, which is Thursday, so we're right on schedule, and this is very exciting. So I also want to thank Jerry Franklin and Dave Radabaugh at the State Department of Ecology, who are our state reps, but through FEMA they've assisted a lot in this work, especially when it came to the Skokomish River area, and also, of course, Loretta Swanson and Trish Roulette. So a lot of folks have put a lot of work into this, and it's really exciting to be here today. So if you have any questions.
So can you just tell me how that's voluntary?
Right. So, and I'm pointing that out because
it's a little bit rhetorical.
Because Trish and I, we deal with our residents who come in and they'll get frustrated. Some of the regulations, they're confusing, they're difficult, and it might be costly. And so sometimes they've been involved with FEMA, contacting FEMA, and FEMA likes to say, well, the county is voluntarily in the program. And that is true, but if we were not to participate in the program, like I said, we would have to be a cash society. So if I went and bought a waterfront house that was in a floodplain and I paid cash for it, I don't have to insure that. I don't have to get flood insurance if I choose not to. And that's fine, and there are folks that do that. But if I'm going to get a loan, a lender is going to look at the flood map, they're going to see I'm in a floodplain, they're going to require that I get flood insurance. I'm not going to be able to afford that without getting the federal subsidized flood insurance. And so that's why we participate.
So you're saying that we're using both? We're using the ones that we accepted and adopted in 16 and the old 88? So the places that have moved and shifted, we're still going off of the one that was officially adopted back then?
So by federal law, the 88 maps, when they are more restrictive, so for example, Maggie Lake, for example, up in Tahuya, when it was mapped in 1988 and the technology was 30 years prior to today, there were several parcels that are in a map floodplain that would never flood.
Yeah.
The contours, you're say 20 feet above the lake, ordinary high water mark. But the lenders still have to regulate to that. People could get letters of map
But this will
amendments.
change that? This will only restrict it to the ones that were just adopted in
As
2016?
of June 20th, then we're only going to be using the new maps, and the 88 maps and the 98 for Skoke Valley, those will be retired. And so as of Thursday, even the federal, so the lenders and insurance program will only be regulating to these new, which we're calling June 20th, 2019 maps.
Okay. Any additional questions? Okay. Any questions from the public for staff? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move into the public comment period. If a member of the public would like to make comment, raise your hand. The chair will recognize you. Come forward to the podium. State your name. Anyone for public comment? Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll close public comment on item 10.2 and move to commissioner deliberation or motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Board of County Commissioners shall approve the approved code amendments as described in Attachment A and Attachment B.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed code amendments as described in Attachment A and Attachment B. Any additional discussion?
Yeah, the staff is wrong when they say that it would not impact some of the people that have their insurance now. It'll impact them in a wonderful way, because I remember that process and went through it. And we had a lot of battles with it. There were a lot of sections that disappeared that are no longer even in the flood zones.
Correct.
So these people will not be required to have it. And I'm glad that you're making this change, because the commission in those years did not know that that was the issue. So you found something that's going to really help our community, because the other ones were already held to it now because we're using that map too. So this is going to let people off the hook, quite a few.
There's a shift. There's a lot of folks who come out of the floodplain that were previously on in the 88 maps, and now there's some folks that are in the floodplain that weren't before, and that's typically along the Hood Canal.
Yeah, but that we put them into force when we approved the other one. So they've already gotten that hit. This is all nothing but good on this one. Good job.
Thank you. Any additional
good job.
Well, so does that mean you're gonna notify them that they no longer will require it, or their mortgage lender will?
Yeah, that's between their mortgage lenders. But we assist often with, mortgage lenders will contact me frequently to get the right mapping and work through that. So, and that's been ongoing since we adopted the prelim maps as regulatory since 2017.
What about the Hood Canal people that now are in the floodplain, but they've been there 10 years? That's not gonna impact them, no, is it?
If they go to redevelop, there's some restrictions. If they do, correct.
So, I have a question on that too, because I didn't realize that was going on. Quite a few years back, down on the North Shore, the creek there overflowed, and it ruined a lot of people's houses or their garages or whatever. So that probably wasn't in the flood area then, but it probably will be now, from a creek.
I'm not sure. I would guess that portion of the creek, and there's a lot of creeks around there, so I'm not sure which one.
Little Mission, not
Little
Little Mission, and it overflowed, and it hit several places there.
May I? This does not affect anything new. Those were already changed. All that floodplain stuff was changed in 16. The only thing this affects are the ones that were on there that had been removed with the new maps, and they were still subject. We just didn't know. So this is just.
This requires
the
other one's already passed in 16, so they're already there.
So it wouldn't be new from this, I mean.
No.
I don't have the maps in front of me, but I'm guessing that area was in a floodplain and it still is, so, yeah.
Okay. Okay, any other commissioner discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries. Moving on to item 10.3, a public hearing to consider amending County Code Chapter 4.08. It's our animal code. Give me 1 second to get back. Okay, so this is a hearing to consider amending the animal code to include language making it unlawful for an owner of an animal to allow the animal to enter or trespass onto private property or allow said animal to run at large onto public property. This is a code change that has been worked on for the past several months and has been worked on in conjunction with the county prosecutor's office, sheriff's office, and the county parks office. And it makes changes that would provide a little bit more flexibility to law enforcement and to the public when it comes to reporting animals at large throughout the county. Any questions, commissioners? Any questions from the public? Okay. Okay.
I'd like to know on that. So now these dogs that are always running around Belfair or that are constantly on the run. Now, is that gonna make it where the sheriff can actually do something about that instead of every week they get picked up and take it in, and then they get back to the owners, and the owners just let them run again. And, you know, so since we don't have animal control, it takes up a lot of our sheriff's time to come to these reports, if they even come to them. You know, a lot of times it's handled by your person going by, don't want to hit the dog. So I guess my question is that going to make it where those people actually get a fine for their dog, and maybe they'll just give the dog up instead of getting the dog back and letting it do whatever again?
So I'll just read quickly from this, and I don't know if Tim might have additional thoughts on it, but we're adding language that says the Animal Control Authority or any commissioned law enforcement officer may cite an owner or keeper upon probable cause that a violation of this subsection has occurred. As any owner or keeper who is found by a preponderance of the evidence to have violated any portion of subsection A shall be subject to a $250 civil infraction. And that's a change from what we had currently in code, and maybe Tim, you can explain the difference.
So really the animal at large, the new code sections that we have under 4.08 have two components. And depending on the circumstances, there can either be a civil penalty, or if it reaches to the level of a knowing violation of the county code, then it can be a misdemeanor, a criminal misdemeanor. So depending on the circumstances and the facts surrounding the dogs and how they're at large running around, it gives the officer discretion to cite for a civil infraction, or if the circumstances arise to criminal activity, criminal citation.
So they probably get a ticket.
It's one of those things that if they get tickets, then it will probably lead to criminal activity.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and so, but they're gonna take the time to go give them that ticket or mail it to them or whatever.
There's been we have worked with the sheriff's office in conjunction with the county commissioner and the Parks Department, and it seems that everybody's on board to get this enacted and act upon it.
Right, yeah, I can see, I'm hoping it'll do something.
Yeah,
You know, for
us
the
too.
animals, I want animal control. I've got the dog lady next to me,
Hope
and
springs
it's
eternal.
horrible.
Yeah.
You know, those dogs barking all the time, and she doesn't live there, it's terrible.
Yeah.
You know,
And
there's nothing that can be done.
this gives the authority to the sheriff's office to enact
Right.
the code also.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move into public comment. If you'd like to make comment, raise your hand. Chair recognize you, come forward to the podium. Any public comment? Okay, seeing no public comment, we will close the public comment period and move on to commissioner deliberation or a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve to amend the County Code Chapter 4.08 Animal Code to include language making it unlawful for an owner of an animal to allow the animal to enter or trespass onto private property, or allow said animal to run at large onto public property.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to amend County Code Chapter 4.08 Animal Code to include language making it unlawful for an owner of an animal to allow the animal to enter or trespass onto private property, or allow said animal to run at large onto public property. Any commissioner discussion?
Yes, I'd like to give props are due on this one. There's been a lot of things. There's a lot of things in the book now that could be done if somebody would just do it. It's already on there. One of the best things that just happened, though, is you had an agreement that was struck between, our attorneys and stuff, but Commissioner Schutte and the sheriff himself, that they will enforce it. That's the real big thing that's occurring here, and I want to give props for that, because that's something that had to be worked on and negotiated, and Commissioner Schutte's the one that did that. So we have the agreements with them, and I think that's a big thing. This is just the paper that goes with it that adds on.
Has the sheriff's office gotten any kind of training to deal with these animals, or with the people that are the hoarders of the animals? Because that's probably not their job description, really, besides, to how to deal with a aggressive animal, yes, would be probably in their job training. But, like my neighbor who's the hoarder, it's, I don't know if she's really a hoarder, I think she's more of a puppy mill. But you go in and she's all nicey, and everybody's, oh yeah, all the dogs have water at that point.
So I would have to say you have to ask the sheriff's office what training their deputies have. But Yeah, so I don't know
Okay,
what the
I'll do
training
that.
is like.
And this is different than that set of circumstances
Right,
where
right.
you have neglect type of issues
Well,
and
you
those
know,
types
for
of
dogs
crimes.
Come onto my property.
Then we're dealing with this
Yeah,
issue.
That's,
Yeah.
exactly, so, yeah.
Okay, any other, do you have any more? Did you want to make public comment?
Sure.
Well, we closed the.
I just wanted to say thanks. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We haven't voted on it yet.
Commissioner Trask, any discussion?
No,
Okay.
good.
I'll just, again, just thank the commissioners for their support of these amendments, as well as Tim Whitehead's work on this. It's been a long time coming over the past several months, and Tim was really instrumental in making sure that we were able to make these updates and changes to the code. And so I appreciate his efforts on that, as well as the conversations that we have with the sheriff's office. You know, I think we'll always have that element of law enforcement prioritizing the calls that are coming in, but this gives them flexibility to cite these kinds of animals at large issues in the county. And so, when we sat down to do this, we looked at trying to find a way to give the deputies on the street flexibility in order to address these issues that they didn't have prior. And so I think this helps strike a balance and provide an opportunity to hopefully address some of these issues. And also just a word of thanks to Bernie Games. He's a park host for the county out at Trim and Glick. And Trim and Glick has long been subject to animals roaming at large on our county park property. And so Bernie was really key in bringing this issue to the forefront. And I think we wouldn't be here voting on this today if it wasn't for Bernie putting this forward to us. Also like to thank Ross McDowell from our Parks Department. He's our Parks Manager, among many other job duties that he has in the county. But in his capacity as Parks Manager, he was able to help bring forward this language, which is applied in other counties as well. And so I appreciate his work on this, and hopefully this provides a little bit of relief to folks in the county that are dealing with animal at large issues. Any additional discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, and the motion carries. Moving on to item 11, our board reports and calendar. Commissioner Netherland, if you wouldn't mind getting us kicked off, Commissioner Trask, and then I will finish.
All right, I met with staff and went over some of the aspects of SmartGov, our little training, I'd say. We had our staff potluck where we were at that together. I met with board members from the North Mason Chamber of Commerce. We had a joint meeting with the city and county. I attended the meeting of the Olympic Regional Clean Air Authority. I had a meeting with the Economic Development Council. I also had a Finance Committee meeting for the Olympic Regional Clean Air Authority. I did attend a Democrat meeting to talk about that 1169 issue. North Mason Resources. Michelle Britton, also from the Department of Transportation, in regards to the bypass, and we went out for a walk on the territory looking at some of the issues that they're dealing with. I attended a retirement party for her fair, and I got to tell you, she's retiring as a Master Chief, and when you watch that beautiful ceremony when they're passing that flag, you can't help but just love our country and respect it that much more. And it's even more when she walked over after receiving it, that she walked over and gave it to her little tiny daughter. That just, it's like the next level, the next person's going to do it. It's just crazy how incredible it was. Harsine Island Bridge celebration was fun. I very much enjoyed that. And their parade. We had our briefings, and then we had our director evaluations. Mason Transit Authority risk assessment, I will be attending that. Mason Transit Authority meeting, I'll be attending that. I'll be going to another get-together at North Mason Community Resources. I am meeting with a member of the TIPCAP to go over some of the road issues. I forgot I met with another member of it last week. I'll be attending the Peninsula Regional Transportation Organization. I'll be attending an event a chili event at the North Mason Regional Fire Authority. Eagle Scout presentation is occurring up there in North Mason, and I'm going to be attending that. I don't know if any of you guys are. The North Mason Community Voice is also having a meeting, and that also brings us back to briefings, and we start all over again.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Trask?
Let me get short and sweet. I either caught a cold from my grandsons or it's allergies. I'm not sure. we had the Mason Transit Board meeting. There's also a ribbon cutting at the Shelton Yacht Club. My husband's brother is coming in from Rhode Island, and so we're going to take them around the 101, show them how beautiful Mason County is, and maybe try to convince them to move here too. And then Monday I'll be back for the briefing and possibly a Republican meeting.
Very good, thank you, Commissioner. Just a couple of things. As Commissioner Netherland mentioned, last week we had a really productive joint meeting with the City Council. It was our first opportunity to sit down and work with them on issues of mutual interest and I think benefit to both the city and the county. Really appreciated them hosting us, and we're going to be able to, I think, really work on some important land zoning and development issues that we share with the city. So excited about that potential as we continue to work with that council. Going forward this week, Mason Transit, Criminal Justice Working Team, and then I have a meeting with Public Works, talk about some road issues that were brought to me by a constituent. Also have the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization board meeting this week, as well as a board meeting for the Great Bend Center for Music. I just want to wrap up by talking about one thing that a little bit different than normal work, but my wife, Catherine Schutte, is finishing her 5 years at North Mason School District tomorrow as their district nurse. Catherine is continuing her doctoral studies to become a nurse practitioner, a family nurse practitioner, with the hopes of coming back to Mason County when she's completed that to be a provider here in the community. And she began at North Mason as one nurse covering 6 schools. Through her advocacy for school nursing, North Mason was able to expand their nursing capacity, and now there are 3 nurses in the school district, and she's worked to bring a lot of different policy changes there to improve health outcomes for students in North Mason. And I know it's a bittersweet week for her as she leaves a job that she loves very, very much, and students that she cares for very, very much, and colleagues that she's worked very hard on to improve outcomes for students in North Mason. And so I just wanted to take a moment and thank her. She might be watching, she might not, but I appreciate I don't know what the ticker looks like over there, Diedrich, but I wanted to say a very heartfelt thank you to my wife for her commitment to our community, and I know that she'll be back in a little bit, in several months, once her studies are complete, and she'll be back in action and continuing to serve the community. So I just thank her for those years of service. Okay. Having reached the end of our...
One little thing there, as a parent of kids in that district up there, we're damn lucky to have her. I'm telling you, and so please pass that on, that we're very grateful. She's really, really good at her job. Yeah, really good.
Thank you. I know she loved it. So having reached the end of our agenda, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. Without objection, we stand adjourned. Have a good day, everybody.
I'll try and get out there to my daughter's.
Good luck.
She's in a talent show.